Silas Minter Jr. and Abigail Eggleton Minter were married on October 29th, 1846, at the residence of Mike Eggleton, who was her father. They built a house in 1850 on land given to them by Mike Eggleton, and that house still stands today on Green Hill Road. The Minter family cemetery is directly across Green Hill Road. From not much in the way of recollections from folks. What we do know to a large extent came from Sandra Minter Johnson, who was a very well known and active researcher in Minter genealogy in Henry County and was a great resource for me. Very nice person to boot. And she indicated that she interviewed Ninner Minter, the one of the older children born in 1891. I think the oldest child of George Minter and Sarah Eggleton Minter. Ninner said that as I said, the house was built on property given by their Uncle Mike. We do know that they almost immediately after their marriage, their first child, they experienced a huge trauma in that the little girl, when she was just a toddler, pulled a pot of freshly brewed coffee off of a table onto her, scalding her, and ultimately it scalded her in a way that her throat swelled shut and she suffocated. It had to be gruesome and horrible as they watched their young child die. So I think that had a profound impact on them. Silas served in the Civil War twice, and once with the 57th Virginia Infantry Regiment, and a second time with the 24th Virginia Infantry Regiment. The first time he was discharged when he reached age 35 because it was early in the war, and they were, a little more selective on who they were taking. By the end of the Civil War, the Confederates, basically anybody that could stand, walk, and put on a uniform, or not even worry about the uniform necessarily, they were going to be recruited. And Silas, it looks like in both occasions, he was a teamster. He helped the long supply trains that accompanied the Army wherever it went. He was one of the wagon teamsters there and corralling the mules and whatever to get them to do what they were supposed to do. Abigail, I really don't know much to say other than Ninner, who they died when Ninner was 8 years old. So she said she had fond memories of them and remembered them very well, and conversations with them that formed the source of what I just said. But the other interesting thing I found is they both died within 2 months of each other in 1897 and 98. And, obviously you always wonder in a situation like that, did they love the person so much that their heart broke, or was it just the fact that they were old? But anyway, Silas, through the course of this events, he figures obviously because he had rented or leased Jack from Austin Jones, and it was his name, his signature, I'm assuming, on the lease is why it was stated that way in the court record. Although it was also stated that Silas and John D. Barrow were co-farming together that year, were combining, because they were both small farmers, again, relatively speaking, and could neither had the room nor could afford the upkeep of a number of slaves. I think that plays into this in a lot of ways, because Jack was living there with them, and or with the Barrows, it appears, at least for part of the time. And again, what I said earlier, that working together side by side gives you a different relationship with somebody from what what you might see on a plantation setting. How Silas's testimony impacted this, he, it came into play because he was one of the first people there to try and track what happened by the footprints and evidence on the ground, tracking, where the plows were, where Jack and John D. Barrow were in the field, and any tracks that might suggest what directions they went in. He also had enough confidence in Jack that he sent him to go get other people, and didn't hesitate, about letting him get on a horse and continue on. So there was some factor of trust there, I think. And Silas says during part of his testimony, I don't have it right here in front of me, but basically that Jack had not given him any problems to speak of, and he didn't. The way he described him was lacking tact, I think, and guile, but he seemed to be torn on what happened that day, because I imagine for the people there in the field, this was somewhat of a mystery, because it's obvious that they didn't know exactly how that injury occurred, and I think that's the proclamation by Reverend Silas Mentor that the eye of the hoe fit the length of the break in the skull. That was a big factor. And now Abby, on the other hand, Abigail, I have a lot of questions about her role. The story about the gloves, that she was sending the gloves to Mary Belcher, and wanted Jack to deliver him, and that he made that statement about if anyone but he wouldn't let anyone but his master whip him, and if they did, it was something to the effect of, if they strike the first blow, I'll get the next one. And first off, even if Jack had developed a closer relationship with these people, I just can't see anybody making that kind of statement to a person in the position of authority, unless it slipped out of his mouth, or unless she was repeating something she heard from another slave. But it gets more interesting then when the trial comes, and the first slave to testify was owned by Mike Eggleton, who was her father. And this slave made a statement that was almost identical to hers about Jack saying that if somebody who wasn't, in Jack's view, authorized to whip him did, that he would strike back, he would get the next blow. And I don't know, maybe it was that Jack said those things. Maybe that was just a term he used to express some sort of independence, maybe so, but it also looks suspiciously like maybe somebody had coached that slave in what he was saying. And it's one of the many mysteries in this thing, that what happened. But that's a little bit of information I have on Silas and Abigail.